Okay, we'll do the roll call. Well, we can get through some of them.
Just can't take any action.
We can do the minutes and stuff, though, huh?
You can't approve it.
Okay.
We can do information, but we can go.
All right. Hang on. I thought we could do the minutes without.
No.
Where Commissioner Alvarado comes from, he is the quorum.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say I resign. We're missing. There's Franny.
You can.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that a quorum?
That's a quorum. You got it.
Very good. Okay, we have 6. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes.
Commissioner Semi, Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Hart,
Here.
Commissioner Farmer, Commissioner Giametti, Commissioner Gardino, Commissioner Inman, Commissioner Madafra, Commissioner Zavaloni, Chair Dunn. You have a quorum.
Pretty good. We'll go to item 5, which is approval of the minutes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Came to work without my tools here.
You just might
Okay.
mention that item has been postponed.
Okay. The resolutions of necessity will
The single resolution.
take place when we get the 8 commissioners. Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a number of items that want to talk about. We have presented for your approval a 2015 meeting calendar update, as well as a calendar for 2016, a proposed calendar for 2016. There needs to be one correction made in that 2016 meeting calendar, where we indicate a commissioner retreat in Orange County. That's going to be in Southern California. We're not certain at this point whether it will be in Los Angeles or Orange County, and so I submit those for your approval.
So moved. Or do we have to move it? Second. Move it.
Seconded. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman and members, I wanted to let you know about some staffing issues. I wanted to announce that we have hired 2 new employees at the Commission. First, and I think this is the worst kept secret in Sacramento, we have hired to take Mitch Weiss's place, a fellow named Eric Thronson. And so Eric was to be reporting to the Commission. You'll, of course, know Eric's name or know of him as one of the staff members on the Senate Transportation and Housing Committee. And Eric was scheduled to join us on the 1st of July. However, in conversations with Senator Bell and Randy Chin, the principal consultant for Senate Transportation and Housing, and given the special session that has been convened by the governor, we thought it would probably be a very appropriate use of Eric's time to leave him at the Senate through at least the initial phases of the special session. So he will be reporting later. We'll be continuing to work with the Senate Transportation and Housing Committee staff and Senator Bell to finalize the time. But I took the liberty of concluding that there's not somebody with his expertise helping on the legislative side through the special session would be the most appropriate application of his expertise. So we will see him as soon as the special session issues are behind us. And then we've also hired a new office tech. Her name is Karen Clavel, and she is back at the office minding the store. Also, we have 2 student interns that are helping us with with our primarily the ATP program. We received, I believe the number is 617 applications, something of that nature, and a lot of, if you've been in the commission office over the last couple of weeks, you've seen stacks and stacks of applications, and getting those marked and logged in and then sent out to the people that are going to be rating them is a pretty significant task, and we've obtained the assistance of 2 student interns, Ayman Mabrouk and Peyton Remedios. And can you please stand and let the commissioners see you? And then the final item, Mr. Chairman, is a recognition of one of our staff people who will be leaving, and I would like to ask you to please join me and Ms. Branson at the podium to make a presentation.
And so we have great staff at the Transportation Commission, and I think that's recognized not just by the Commission, but certainly by our partners at Caltrans and all of the people with whom our staff works. But it's kind of rare when somebody catches or wins the heart of everybody with whom he works, has a wry sense of humor, and always has a smile and a witty comment to make. And so I'm very sad in some ways to announce that we're going to be losing Juan Guzman to retirement. He will be leaving us at the end of next week, and this is his last commission meeting. So I would like the Vice Chair to make a presentation from the Commission, and then we'll ask Ms. Branson to make a presentation from the staff.
And I have to say that being a member of the Transportation Commission, this really is like a family. And, you can't just leave the family. So we expect you to come back and say hello, visit. You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. So there's a whole bunch of whereases, and, it's supervising transportation planner all the way down to 29 years, and then obviously 39 years of service with the state. But I do want to go through the resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that the California Transportation Commission commends Juan Guzman for his accomplishments and applauds his outstanding service to the California Transportation Commission and his contribution to transportation in the state of California. And be it further resolved that the commissioners and staff of the California Transportation extends our best wishes to Juan Guzman in all his future endeavors. We hope you have a very long, happy, and joyful retirement, Juan.
So Juan, I've worked with you a long time, and there's a lot of folks here that have really worked with you a long time, and I appreciate Will letting me speak on behalf of the staff. We are truly going to miss you. Your knowledge is not replaceable. As many of you know, Juan is an expert in rail and mass transit, TCRP, Proposition 116, the EEM program, the elderly and disabled program, the STIP, the SHOP, and when there's an issue in our office, a question that I receive, I think, where's Juan? So, Juan, I'm just very happy for you, but I just truly want you to know how much we'll miss working with you, miss seeing you every day, we'll miss your personality, and we'll miss your assistance on our agenda as well. So, anyways, with that, staff, this is our executive director's idea, is to frame the final resolution today that you will be presenting, and this is a picture that was signed by all the staff. So thanks, Juan.
Thank you. First of all, before I forget, I also want to acknowledge the certificate that was presented to me by the RTPA group, and I had asked that nothing be done, so they did it, early, but thank you very much. As Susan said, I really appreciate having worked with not just CTC folks, Caltrans for 30 years, but also all the RTPA groups and all the regional people. So I'm going to miss it, but it's just time. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, there's one more item on the Executive Director's report, and that's the approval of the outline for the annual report. We've received comments back from all of you and have made modifications accordingly, and we need to have the approval of the Commission so we can proceed to develop the report for this year.
Move it. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And one final point, Mr. Chairman, I think that we should be on the record for the postponement of item 2. So, Mr. Maller, with the chair's permission, if you could just outline that.
Yes, Commissioners. Item number 2 is being postponed per the department based on the property owner needing more time to vet the department's latest offer. So this will be moved to a subsequent Commission meeting if necessary.
Very good. Item 7, Commission reports. None. Commissioners' meetings through compensation.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Can't do the hearing yet?
Yeah, we can do the hearing.
Oh, we can do the hearing. Okay. So item 3 is a hearing, a program of projects for the small urban and rural. Juan?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, the state law places 3 mandates on the Commission regarding this federal transit program. It requires the Commission to direct the Department on how to allocate funds for the program. It also requires the Commission to establish an appeals process for the program, which we have done. And just to let you know that we presented the draft program of projects at the May meeting, and between the May meeting and today's meeting, we held the appeals hearing, and there were no appeals heard. The third mandate the Commission has regarding 5310 is to hold at least one public hearing, and that's the reason for this required hearing. So the way we normally conduct this is to ask if anybody in the audience has testimony to present on the 5310.
Okay, the public hearing is open. Is there anybody that wishes to deliver testimony? Anybody? Seeing none, the hearing's closed. Juan?
Commissioners, we move into item 4, and this is the adoption of the 5310 program for federal fiscal year 13-14, and staff recommends you approve the program of projects for this year.
Move it. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And Mr. Chairman, if we could acknowledge the maker of the motion and the second for staff's assistance in terms of recording who makes it, that would be very helpful.
Very good.
Thank you.
We're going to skip to item 21, which is the update on Doyle Drive.
Yes, Commissioners. Item 21 is an update on Doyle Drive. Bijan Sertepi will be making a presentation. Some of the commissioners visited the job site in the middle of May. There was supposed to have been a traffic switch done at the end of May. That didn't happen due to fire suppression system glitches. Those glitches have been fixed. The fire department has signed off, and I believe Bijan will be able to tell you the new date for the traffic switch. So Bijan, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Is this on? Good morning. My name is Bijan Sartipi. Sorry, I'm the District Director for Caltrans for Bay Area, and with me here today is Tilly Chang, the Executive Director for San Francisco County Transportation Authority, our partner in the development and the delivery of the Presidio Parkway Doyle Drive. Item 21 is an information item, is an update and a progress report on the status of the Doyle Drive. And as you can see on this slide, this project is a two-phase project. Phase 1, shown in yellow, was delivered by traditional design bid build, and Phase 2, which is in bluish green, was utilizing the public-private partnership authority that the department received, and the commission approved this project as the first P3 project in the state, was delivered under that authority. By way of background, the yellow part, which was Phase 1, consisted of 4 construction contracts and achieved seismic safety in April of 2012. And that was one of the key goals that the department had, to make sure that we achieve seismic safety at the earliest possible time. And while we were still working on that project, we proceeded with the procurement of a P3 concession on the project to complete the facility and to re-envision the Doyle Drive into the Presidio Parkway. And we had the notice to proceed for construction, as is noted on the slide, in 2012. Again, by background, before we started construction, the Doyle Drive, which was a 75-plus-year-old structure at the end of its useful life, seismically unsafe, was the approach to the Golden Gate Bridge from the south. This view is looking west from Palace of Fine Arts in the forefront, Golden Gate in the background. And the facility was designed to limit access to the military post, the Presidio at the time. When we had the traffic switch back in 2012, the condition was to place the facility on a seismically safe detour, to utilize the southbound direction of the facility for both direction, going north and south. We constructed one tunnel, one high viaduct at the northern end or the western end of the facility, and the public was placed on a very safe, seismically safe structure while we went about to construct the remainder of the facility. The Presidio Parkway, after it's completed, would look, as you can see on this slide, with 4 tunnels, 2 sets, 2 tunnels in each direction, an interchange in front of Palace of Fine Arts, Girard, and 2 high viaducts at the other end of the facility. I'm going to go through a few slides that shows the progress of construction. This one shows the most westerly end of the project, the interchange at Highway 1, 19th Avenue, and Highway 101, Presidio Parkway. This was taken back in June of 2015, fairly recent. And as you can see, the high viaduct in both directions is complete. Only one of them is is being used presently. The other one is still being worked on. As you can see on this slide, the high viaduct, this is the northbound direction as you approach the interchange to Highway 1, 19th Avenue. And the contractor is doing the final touches. Some painting on the railing of the bridges is what you can see on this slide. This is the mid section of the project, the at-grade section, which is between the 2 tunnels. The battery tunnel on the west side, or the upper left corner of the slide, and the main post tunnel on the lower right corner of the slide. and this portion of the facility is actually at grade. This view, looking west or northbound, shows the main post tunnel at the background, and the Tennessee Hollow bridges, which is where the picture is taken. The majority of the work is completed in this area also. Much closer view, this is the main post. This is where the main post is going to get connected back to the waterfront. One of the major activity that the Presidio Trust will be doing, covering over the tunnel that you see here, with some additional activities that the Presidio Trust has as part of their program, which is going to be a great addition to this project as part of the landscaping also. Looking back to east or toward southbound, this is the area near the sports center. There is a major retaining wall to the left of the slide. You can see the slope in front of that retaining wall, and the purpose of the retaining wall was to minimize the impact to a wetland, which is right in front of that slope. And so this protected the environment as we built the facility. Going further east to the beginning of the project, this is the Girard Interchange. Palace of Fine Arts is just off the picture to the right, and the interchange is the main entrance to the Presidio, which is at the lower end of the picture. And the interchange starts at Richardson Avenue and moves over Girard and enters the tunnel to the left. This is the same location at ground level below the structure. What you see on the background under the structure is actually Presidio Trust. This would be their main entrance, and this is a great access, as one of the criteria and the measures included in the project was to provide that access that was missing when the Presidio Trust was operating as a military post. A number of the commissioners recently, back in May, participated in a tour and had a first-hand view of some of the improvements that was ongoing on the construction site, and received a similar presentation during their visit. So as Stephen mentioned, the original plan for the project was to have a traffic switch done by now. We had some issues, the contractor had some issues with respect to passing all of the fire marshal testing and making sure the facility meets all the requirements of the fire marshal. So we have rescheduled that for July 9th, next week. This would be a long weekend closure. 79 hours of construction will be going on. The plan is to close the facility at 10 p.m. on a Thursday night on July 9th, and to pick up and open up the facility at 5 a.m. Monday morning on July 13. I should remind that the Golden Gate Bridge will remain open, Highway 1 will remain open, Mason Street will remain open, and that there are 4 primary work locations, very active zones within the project that needs to be modified and be worked on during this closure. The critical path is the main line. There is a concrete portion that they have to pour and tying the tunnel into the facility itself. Those commissioners that had a chance to walk in that area saw that profile difference that needs to be adjusted, and so that's one of the areas of activity, and it is on the critical path during the closure itself. There will be a number of other fire marshal activities that will go on that cannot happen prior to the closure of the facility, so that will be also part of the operation. This slide, the middle portion of the slide, shows those 4 major activity zones blocked out in red, and the one on the upper left side is the toll plaza. There is some paving work and restriping work that needs to be done to readjust and the lanes as it gets close to the toll plaza of the Golden Gate Bridge. The middle section, which is at the lower left, which is on the critical path, is the crossover, where the traffic needs to, there is a concrete portion that needs to be poured, and connect the northbound lanes into the new northbound Battery Tunnel at that location. So there's going to be a lot of focus in this area. The upper right picture shows Girard Interchange. There will be a number of activity in that area, realigning and paving in that area to make sure that that interchange operates. And the lower right is the connection back to Richardson Avenue to take that street to go into the structure, over the structure, the interchange, and not detour as it is operating today. With respect to project schedule, background, contracts 1 through 4, phase 1 was completed in fall of 2012. The CTC approved this project as a public-private partnership in May of 2010. The agreement was executed. I won't read all of those. Going forward, we are having the traffic switch on July 9th, as I mentioned. So that's the date. There will be a substantial completion of the project in September. Final acceptance would be next year. And there's a milestone payment, which would be 45 days after substantial completion. The O&M is for 30 years, so that starts at that time and moves forward into 2045. We've had a lot of success in this project, interacted with a lot of entities, and saved the environment. As you can see, there is the picture up on top. We've had a number of groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, beginning and ending of different milestones within the project, and we're coming up with one of the major ones that actually delivers this project to the traveling public, and that will be the July 9th closure and the opening on the 13th. With that, I conclude my presentation. We're available for any question that you may have.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bijan. Thanks for your presentation. Some of us have received some correspondence from the contractor about cost overruns and about a long process to resolve some of these overruns. Can you let the commission know where it's at? Because I know the number that's being floated around was big. I know there's a process in the contract with the DRB and to settle those, but there seems to be still some dispute. Can you shed any light on where we're at on resolving some of those claims?
Well, there are some disputes, and actually we were in front of this commission last time. We have settled a number of these disputes. We came to the commission at the last commission meeting and asked for an allocation for a settlement of quite a number of those potential claims that were filed, and we were able to find merit in some of them. Some were department change. We came to the commission, we made our presentation, and the commission approved funding to support the settlement agreement that we have reached with the developer. There remains other notices of potential claims. We do have a process, as you mentioned, the dispute resolution board process. There is an elevation process, 3 levels. Before it gets in front of that board, the board does make a ruling. It's not non-binding. And we're going to be going through that. There is certainly disagreement on those notices. We're not finding merits, and we're having that conversation with them.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I could just add on, they're not cost overruns. They're notices of potential claims that need to be worked out through the contractual dispute resolution process. As called out in the contract, we have a DRB in place. We did divert from that on mutual agreement with the contractor to do a facilitated dispute resolution. I was personally involved in those. We brought some of those resolutions to you last time, or at least the request that we presented to you last time was a representation of some of that resolution. There are more outstanding items, and Bijan and myself, as well as our legal team, are anxious to resolve as many items that have been noticed to us as potential claims, and we will continue to follow and be active in the DRB process because they want to go back to using the DRB process, which we agreed to do, and we're actively working to try to be as diligent in that process as possible. I'm as anxious as Bijan to resolve any matters that we can from a contractual dispute standpoint as early as possible.
I have a question on that, on the DRB process. So, and you kind of mentioned something there that it's non-binding. So, if the panel, and I got a couple calls myself, the panel makes a ruling, and obviously it's non-binding, but then Caltrans decide that it's not good enough, that now we're going to go, I guess we're going to go to court. And, you know, non-binding or binding arbitration, by the time you go to court, you're asking a judge to do a lot to overturn a panel's decision. So how many of these issues do we have that the board has ruled that it's a legitimate cost, and how many have we paid, and how many are we disputing and taking to legal?
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I'd be happy to brief staff and have a more thorough conversation about what information is appropriate for open discussion. We are in negotiations with the contract on contractual disputes. The DRB has ruled in our favor, the DRB has ruled in their favor, but the DRB has to make a ruling consistent with the contract. If we do not accept the DRB ruling, there is another avenue for the contractor to pursue, and that is built into the contract.
Well, you know, it's concerning to me because on Highway 17, we pretty well broke a pile driving contractor. It took over a year to get to arbitration. And, you know, what you're asking these guys to do is carry the note. We approved the work, the change order, whatever it was, or the dispute, and, you know, we expect to pay our bills. So if we're going to, you know, I want to make sure that, and I guess I really can't understand why we didn't go into binding arbitration, but, you know, the makeup of the panel, I understand, is that spot, Caltrans spot on the panel still empty?
We removed, after we went back to the DRB, we decided to make a change with our member. That's only about 3 weeks in the workings. We're interviewing and doing our due diligence on our replacement, and I've committed to all parties to try to replace that member as quick as possible so we can get back to the work of the DRB.
So what timeline are we looking at?
We have several more interviews to do. I hope to resolve this in a matter of weeks.
So we're looking at least by the middle of July?
Yeah, I would hope that we would be able to get through the process before then.
Not hoping, or the middle of July we'll be back in business?
I got to do interviews and then decide whether or not I have an appropriate candidate. That's a good target for us to get the DRB back in action. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's you know, it's a financial burden on these guys. The longer we wait.
Understand the structure of this contract is a public-private partnership. We have not written a note yet anyway. The banks are already carrying the note, and they are ahead of schedule. So I understand there are disputes, and we need to get to the bottom of that. A notice of potential claim and merit are things that need to be worked out. I want to try to resolve any disputes at the lowest possible level, even before the DRB if we can get to it. And then if, you know, we want to make sure that it's a productive DRB and hopefully resolve them there. But if not, it would have to go to the last step of the conflict resolution process. And that's a painful process for us all, and we all want to try to avoid that process.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, first, I want to just preface my question with the fact that I've traveled that route for almost 20 years every day to work, and it's a darn good project in terms of what it is doing for those who use that stretch every day. I almost wish I could go back and start commuting in that direction again, but I'm not that crazy. San Francisco will never be a user-friendly place for motorists. But bottom line is this project has been interesting and valuable in a lot of ways because it was kind of it was a smorgasbord of traditional contracting and alternative delivery method. Both halves have delivered a quality project. I think that's a key thing for us to keep in mind. Secondly, I was one of the commissioners around when this whole thing was debated, and it was supportive and voted for that half of the project to be alternative delivery, mainly because I felt there was an important concept that we needed to vet in California, and that is to be able to deliver or to transfer risk appropriately and let the consortium have a reasonable, be able to have a shot at using their innovative methods to do the project up to spec and make a profit, and hopefully save money down the road, particularly when they're on the hook to maintain this facility for years to come. So anyway, having said all of that, we've been assured in previous meetings that those questionable claims out there are, that Caltrans is confident that you would prevail, that they don't have the same merit as the ones that we approved some funding for. And I get that. I don't have the experience with the DRB process that Commissioner Alvarado has. He's had to deal with that firsthand for many, many years, but I do have some familiarity with it. And the concept that there are some claims that have been vetted through there that did not go Caltrans' direction, and yet we are to be basically assured that if it goes to a more legally, if it goes to court, that we would that our chances of prevailing are very high. That's I just want to make sure that that you can reconfirm that for me, because at the end of the day, if it does go to the final step, it's going to be more expensive all the way around. Particularly if Caltrans does not prevail. So I'm interested in trying to make sure we save our money and that we are, that we're taking the wise, prudent course as we go forward. I'm not interested in getting in the details of who's, the merits on each side. That's for you guys to decide. But that is a concern I do have.
I appreciate the comments, and I'll go back to one of the things you led off with. I agree that both Phase 1 and Phase 2, a very high-quality construction project is being completed. We have some contractual disputes, and we'll go through the process and try to resolve those. And like I indicated before, I do think that the last path is the most complicated and can be the most costly to get to a resolution, and we would want to try to resolve as many of these as we possibly can at the earliest possible time. I do have the burden to justify the merit of them and to be able to justify any dollar that I was going to write to the contractor, and we want to try to resolve those aspects of it to be able to close those out as quick as possible.
Any other questions? Thank you. And we'll move on. The agency report, Undersecretary Annis.
Good morning. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention. First was last Tuesday, the governor called issued a proclamation calling a special session of the legislature to address transportation funding. I'm imagining Carrie will probably go through some of the details during her report on state and legislative matters, so I won't go into the detail, but did certainly want to recognize the work of the CTC over a long period of time to talk about the needs of transportation infrastructure and assess the condition of our system. And that's certainly very helpful as we go into the special session to recognize pavement condition, bridge condition, local street and road condition, all the work you've done, certainly going back to the 2011 needs assessment. So thank you for your work on that, and of course your continuing work as you're having workshops around the state. I think the most recent was yesterday in West Sacramento, and I know that's just one of many that are upcoming. The other thing I wanted to mention was we have several big transformative events related to rail and transit through next Tuesday. The first to mention was there's a process that was put into state law in 2012 that would allow for the transfer of management of two of the Amtrak state-supported routes, the Losan route in Southern California and the San Joaquin route here in Northern California, to regional joint powers authorities. Of course, the Capital Corridor was transferred to a joint power authority, I believe, in the late 90s. The Caltrans staff, agency staff, have been working diligently with the two JPAs over the last 18 months or so to go through the provisions that would allow for the transfer. And in fact, Secretary Kelly approved business plans for both JPAs last week, and also approved a finding that the transfer to the Joint Powers Authority would result in a cost savings to the state. The final step is for Director Doherty and the JPA management to sign off on those interagency transfer agreements, which, if parties are both satisfied with the provisions of those agreements, which I believe it's likely they will be signing those agreements early next week. The change that will result in is the state will still be a funding partner for operation of those two Amtrak lines, but management of those lines will be devolved to a regional level. And again, we hope that that opportunity will be realized, that those JPAs being better integrated in their local community will be able to better market those services, will be able to better integrate those services with local transit and other rail and transit operations, and that at the same time, the state will still be very much involved through statewide rail planning to make sure those services are integrated with the future high-speed rail system as that comes online. So in that regard, I did want to call out a few Caltrans staff that have been working on that. Christina Azuri has been very helpful in recent times working on all the legal documents. Crystal Ortiz in the Division of Rail and Mass Transit. And certainly Bruce Roberts, the head of that division, and at the Cal STA agency, Chad Edison has been working closely as well. The other big rail and transit news is come next Tuesday, the Secretary will likely be announcing recommendations for the first round of awards under the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. That's a cap and trade funded program. The May revision of the governor's budget had upped the grant amount to $290 million that would be available for that first round. Part of the cap and trade program was put on hold for further discussions with the legislature on a more global cap and trade funding plan. So what we have ready to go at this point is $225 million. And again, we expect the Secretary to announce those projects on Tuesday. Staff at Caltrans have been very helpful in that regard as well. Gila Priebe, Ezekiel Castro, and Joan Musolani have been very helpful in that regard, as well as former CTC staffer Mitch Weiss has been working closely on this program. And certainly want to also recognize the Air Resource Board staff that have worked closely on the development of these programs, because they are essentially the funding partner. The funds are coming from their cap and trade auction proceeds, and we've certainly had to work with them and enjoyed working with them to make sure we're compliant with meeting the needs and requirements of that program. So that completes the report. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Undersecretary Annis, thank you for the update and the good work on the cap and trade competitive pool of funds. You mentioned $225 million to invest in this first year. How many projects totaling how much dollar amount in requests did you receive?
We've received about, I believe, 31 applications totaling about $450 million. So we're able to program about half of that total amount requested. We'll also, of course, continue to monitor the final action on cap and trade proceeds. Again, the difference was about $65 million.
that was requested and is still pending final action on the cap and trade program for this upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I just have a couple updates, but first let me echo the sentiments of your Executive Director and also Undersecretary Yanis on the work that the CTC and the Executive Director and staff have done on educating folks about the need for investing in transportation and the implications on our economy and quality of life, and certainly the town hall meetings or the transportation forums that have been conducted. And I appreciated the opportunity to participate yesterday in West Sacramento, and also look forward to participating in those in the future. It was already mentioned about the special session. The department is standing at the ready to provide any factual information about the disposition of the infrastructure, as well as what investment could accomplish on the transportation system as that unfolds over the next couple of months. I have a couple personnel announcements as well. Rachel Falsetti has been permanently appointed to the chief of, as the new chief of Division of Construction at Caltrans. Rachel is certainly somebody who has been familiar to you, working as the division chief of transportation programming. That means that Bruce Dotero will have the pleasure of continuing to work with you a little bit longer while we backfill that position on a permanent basis. But I don't think Rachel is here. I didn't see her, or else I'd offer my congratulations to her in front of you. We also made an appointment for the Division of Right-of-Way and Land Surveys. Ms. Jennifer Loudon has been appointed as the Division Chief for Division of Right-of-Way. She has worked with the department since 2001 in Right-of-Way in District 3 as well as in Sacramento. So I feel very fortunate to have those expertise in those positions. In front of you, you also have the latest mile marker publication from the department representing a Caltrans performance report. This is the second quarter of this fiscal year, and we continue to try to publish these on a quarterly basis. You'll notice that some of the performance metrics have been updated and revised based on the latest strategic plan that we distributed and published in April, and new performance metrics were identified in that document, and they're making their way into the mile marker on a dashboard to represent where we stand on accomplishing those performance metrics. So each of you should have one of those in front of you. Phase 2 seismic retrofit program, I want to provide an update on that. On June 8th, traffic was switched on the from the old Schuylerheim Bridge to the new Schuylerheim Bridge down in Southern California, and that for us is the last bridge to be finished in phase 2 of the seismic retrofit. That means as the completion of that, 1,155 bridges have been seismically upgraded to be safer on the state system. We still have to be diligent about this program on the local bridge size, and we still have some work to complete there, but the state portion of the phase 2 of the seismic retrofit program is now completed with traffic shifting onto the new Schuylerheim Bridge. A couple of other notable projects, and these are just some of the projects representing recent accomplishments by the department. On June 11th, we cut the ribbon in District 7 in Pacoima on the adding 16 lanes of new HOV lanes to the Los Angeles County carpool lane system. This is on Interstate 5 between State Route 170 and State Route 118. It was a $223 million project, which had ARA as well as Proposition 1B dollars on that. Last time I mentioned the Bi-County corridor in the Inland Empire and the opening of that project and HOV lanes. Next week, we will also cut the ribbon in District 10 on Route 219. It is a 4-laning project, and this is the phase 2 of the series of projects, and it is a $42 million project, which also has about $15 million of Prop 1B work on that. And the last project that I'll note that is upcoming is on July 17th. We will cut the ribbon, hold the ribbon cutting ceremony on Highway 101 at the San Juan Road Interchange Project, and hopefully many of you are familiar with that project. It is at the north end of the Prunedale Improvement Project, and this project removed 3 major at-grade intersections on 101, and anybody who has tried to enter from those at-grade intersections or traveled that corridor knows how much of an improvement that will be. I also had the opportunity a few weeks back to participate in the 25th annual ITS America annual meeting, the annual Intelligent Transportation Society meeting in Pittsburgh. I participated on three panels, a CEO roundtable, which also included Congressman Bill Schuster. I participated on a panel on the future of freight and how technology will play a part in how we move goods around this country, and then also on a panel on the future of autonomous and connected vehicles and the implementation of those new technologies, and also was able to talk about some of the innovative corridors that we are working on in California. As the automobile gets smarter, we also need to make our transportation system smarter as well. So with that, that concludes my update, and I'd be more than happy to answer questions.
Questions?
So Malcolm, following up on your ITS conference and the future of technology and freight, could we maybe at one of our future meetings ask you to go into a little more detail, because I think it is so important for all of us as we look at the shared economy and the role of technology. It's here, and so I think it's important for all of us with our very precious few transportation dollars to really recognize where we are and where we're likely best going with that. So if we could make sure that we get maybe we could do it at one of our public forums too, or ask our freight stakeholders to come and share with us from their perspective as well. So take advantage of what you learned.
I'd be more than happy to at either of those forums to make the same presentation that I did at ITS America, and maybe we could also invite some of my counterparts that were on that panel from the private sector to participate. I'd be more than happy to.
Thank you. I think it's just so important because scale matters for us in our state, and it's a huge part of our economic vitality. So I want to make sure that we're intimately engaged in these discussions. And then on the public forums, I think it's absolutely a great idea, and I've asked our executive director to really think about how we share what we've learned. Maybe we figure out a way to highlight some of the messages. I know when we were in Fresno, we had a wide variety of different stakeholders, which was great. I think we sometimes preach to the choir a little bit. So the broader the base we can expand at those public forums, I think the better we'll all be. But also, if we can capture some of the messages, and what we heard in Fresno was loud and clear, was one size fits all doesn't work in some of our rural environments and different heavy agriculture environments. And then also the other message I think we heard clear from the Fresno visit was finish what you start. And I think Highway 99 is a great example of how some of our resources, when we do one phase and then hop over and then do another phase down the road, that maybe they're not as efficient. So hopefully we can all figure out a good way to share what we learn at those sessions.
Thank you. Any further questions? Congratulations on that San Juan Road. That's going to make life a lot easier for those folks down there. We will not have a report from the feds. Vincent Mamano is busy gathering the millions that he promised Malcolm, and we will expect a check at the next meeting. Report by the regional agencies. Renee.
All right. Good morning. Can you hear me? All right. Renee DeVere-Oki here on behalf of the regional agencies today. We are rapidly closing in on the end of the state fiscal year, and fiscal year 15-16 ahead of us appears to be very tight in terms of allocation capacity. I believe that there is 130 million of projects that don't have the space to deliver. So we will, as agencies, be carefully monitoring our projects, and we want to make sure that what is ready to go can move forward. However, we are encouraged that the special session is happening, to specifically looking at addressing our transportation funding needs. The word zero step that we're hearing for the 2016 estimate are not two words that we're excited to hear together. So we'd be very supportive of delaying the adoption of the fund estimate if it gives the time and opportunity to figure out some of these solutions, even see what happens on the federal front. On the lighter side, We wanted to congratulate Juan on his retirement. We did present him with a plaque, even though he was not there. He has been always collaborative, willing to pick up the phones, look for creative solutions. So best of luck to you, and enjoy your retirement. And then finally, I'd like to introduce you to the newly elected moderator and vice moderator. We rotate from north to south on the state fiscal year. Sarkis Kacheks from Santa Barbara Council of Governments will be your moderator for 15-16, so you'll see him presenting at the next meeting. And Melissa Garza from the Council of Fresno County Governments will be the vice moderator. So with that, I wrap up my last report as moderator, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to join in with the good comments that have been made about Juan. You know, he is a poster child for how someone who lives well and honestly can look like he looks at his age. He's the same age as me. Nobody would question if I said I was going to retire, but you look at him, you think he's only 35 years old, you know. So something is amiss here from my point of view, but I am very congratulatory, Juan. We're going to miss you. Thank you.
Okay, the Rural Counties Task Force. Jerry.
Good morning, Commissioners. I, too, would like to congratulate Juan on his retirement. He's been very helpful personally to me, and I'm sure to other members of the Rural Counties Task Force. So on behalf of the Rural Counties Task Force members, I wish you all the best in retirement. The Rural Counties Task Force is closely monitoring discussions related to the 2016 STIP. Of course, like the regional agencies, we have concerns about the potential allocation plan. We'll be looking closely at our STIP project delivery timelines and work with Commission staff to develop a strategy that allows for development and implementation of project delivery priorities that are consistent with state RTP guidelines, local input, and regional transportation plans. Also STIP related, in early June, I submitted a letter and memo to the CTC staff regarding our recommended performance measures for rural areas. After completing a comprehensive survey and interviews of the 26 rural member agencies and 4 small urban MPOs, our consultant team was able to develop 7 recommended performance measures for rural areas. Those metrics are proposed for inclusion in the 2016 STIP, and I am pleased to understand that CTC staff is supportive of including these performance indicators in the draft STIP guidelines. This is very important to have these types of performance measures that can be effectively implemented by these small rural agencies and MPOs. RCTF submitted a comment letter regarding the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan. We acknowledge the shift away from priority route designation of focus routes to a more multimodal strategic interregional corridor approach, as well as the emphasis on goods movement data. Many significant non-commute related trips in rural areas are made for the purposes of recreational travel, tourism, and market-to-farm agriculture activities. And these trips are vital to state and regional economies and should be considered in all aspects of transportation planning in conjunction with goods movement. Additionally, the vast majority of rural area interregional trips are made by vehicle, as transit and other modal options are largely unavailable. Similarly, with regard to the California Transportation Plan, many RCTF agencies submitted letters to Caltrans outlining concerns with regard to that plan. Specifically, member agencies addressed concerns regarding the inclusion of language that would inhibit a local agency's ability to deliver and develop roadway projects that increase or add capacity to the existing system. They also indicated concerns that the document is establishing direction for project selection that could potentially restrict RTPA's ability to prioritize future projects for funding. The projects included in regional transportation plans were developed through comprehensive public process and consistent with state RTP guidelines adopted by the CTC. So that's really what we're mostly concerned about at this time, and I definitely appreciate the opportunity to get up here before you at these meetings and present the concerns of the rural counties. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Self-help counties. I don't see. There you go. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm here today for our Chair, Diane Steinhauser, and happy to present our report. I'd like to extend Suffolk County's congratulations on Juan's retirement as well. I hope he gets the opportunity to do some traveling and enjoy his time off, but we've all enjoyed working with him and wish you the best as well. Suffolk County, we are also concerned with the STIP. Rather than going into some of the comments that have been made before, I'd like to talk a little bit about the efforts that we're doing with regards to managed lanes and tolling. We're still working on a bill that the Suffolk County has sponsored. It's in the second house. We're in discussions with the administration and the department in an effort to make sure that we're coordinating and that the process that comes out is something that's functional for both the state and the regions. I think we've had very good discussions over the last few years, really, to get to the point that we're at. And we're hopeful that we're going to cross the finish line in some capacity come the end of this legislative session. We're also pleased to be in discussions and listening to legislative leaders and other industry leaders, including the self-help counties that are participating in the process, talking about some of the funding opportunities that may be realized at the special session that the governor's called. So we're optimistic. I think that there's a lot of challenges, obviously, to bring all the parties together to get the votes that are going to support some package, but we're certainly actively participating and readily available to help provide some insight to questions that may arise. Past that, we're starting to get ready for the Focus Conference. As you know, this is an opportunity for industry experts to kind of talk about trends and kind of wonky things and have a little fun as well. So we're actively putting those agendas together, working with many of you and many in the room here to make sure that it's a conference that's going to be informative as well as providing a venue to exchange ideas and move forward with some of the innovations that we find here in our state. So with that, I am available for any questions. I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Questions?
I just have a question. We've heard from a number of folks about the STIP estimate. Can we just review that process, where the timing on that? Will, maybe you can take that one.
Mr. Chair and members, there will be presentations on the agenda regarding that following the consent calendar, which is next, I think.
Further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have 8 commissioners present, so we'll take up the consent calendar. Stephen?
Yes, Commissioners. The next 30 agenda items are the consent calendar, item 33 through 62. The following changes need to be noted. Under item 53, it is a mitigated negative declaration, not a negative declaration. Under item 55, there are now 20 resolutions of necessity, not 22. Resolution numbers C21335 and C21341 are withdrawn. With these changes, staff recommends approval of the consent calendar.
Moved by Commissioner Gilmetti, seconded by Commissioner Burke. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, now we'll go to state and federal legislative matters. Carrie?
Good morning, Commissioners. Agenda item 15 is a pink and an action item. June 5th was the last day for bills to pass out of the House of Origin. Of the bills staff were tracking, 33 bills did not pass out of the House of Origin. July 17th is the last day for policy committees to meet. The legislature will be on summer recess starting the 17th through starting July 17th through August 16th. Attachment A of the book item represents the bills the staff are currently tracking. As Brian Annis mentioned, on June 16th, the governor issued a proclamation for an extraordinary session of the legislature to address transportation funding. Both houses convened in special session on June 19th, establishing committees. Yesterday, the Assembly Speaker announced Assembly members to serve on the Transportation and Infrastructure Development Committee. Assembly Member Frazier was appointed the chair, Assembly Member Asajian as vice chair, and of special note, Assembly Member Autumn Burke was assigned to serve on this committee. A number of bills have already been introduced during special session, which I will highlight shortly. Staff will continue to monitor the special session proceedings and report back to the Commission. As a budget update, AB 93 which is the Budget Act of 2015, was signed yesterday by the governor. This bill makes appropriations for the support of state government for the 2015-16 fiscal year. AB 95, a transportation trailer bill, was also signed by the governor yesterday. This bill specifically provides for a variety of transportation related matters. Specifically, AB 95 includes a provision for the relinquishment of the Tower Bridge to the cities of Sacramento and West Sacramento. SB 97, the Budget Act of 2015 amendments, was also, well, I'm not sure was it signed yesterday or not, but was awaiting, last time I saw it, was awaiting the governor's signature. SB 97 amends the Budget Act of 2015 by revising items appropriation of special interest to the commission. This removes the $25 million of cap and trade funding that would be appropriated to active transportation. SB 16, Transportation Funding Act, as reported in Transportation Funding Bill by Bell, was as reported at the May meeting. SB 16 creates a road maintenance and rehab transportation program to address deferred maintenance on state highway system and local streets and roads. This bill would provide for the program to be authorized every 5 years by the legislature, raising approximately $3.5 billion per year. SB 16 was amended on the floor to provide for an appropriation from the road maintenance and rehab account to the commission for the costs of carrying out the duties associated with this bill. SB 16 was reintroduced in special session as SBX 1-1. SB 321, also Bell Bill, as reported at the March meeting, makes changes to the administrative process for setting price-based excise tax in order to give the State Board of Equalization the tools necessary to reduce overall volatility of revenue. This bill initially contained a clause, an urgency clause. However, the bill has been amended on the floor on May 27th, removing the urgency clause and the two-thirds vote requirement for the bill. SCAX 1-1, which is also a special session bill by Huff, was introduced in special session. This bill is a reintroduction of SCA 7, which was presented to the Commission at the May meeting. This proposed constitutional amendment makes changes to Article 19 of the state constitution to place limits on how the transportation taxes and fees can be used. ABX 1-1, Alejo, is a reintroduction of AB 227, which was presented to the Commission at the March meeting. This bill amends the repayment date of the loans to the transportation funds to the general fund and would stop the use of late fees for debt service on general obligation bonds. Finally, SCR 45, Berry Hill. This Senate Constitution resolution designates a portion of State Highway 41 in Fresno County from Bullard Avenue to Herndon Avenue as the Joe Levy Memorial Highway and requests Caltrans to determine the cost of erecting the appropriate signs consistent with the signing requirements for the state highway system, showing this special designation, and upon receiving donations from non-state sources covering that cost to erect those signs. Joe Levy served as a member of the California Transportation Commission from March 1983 through February 1991 and served as the chair of the commission in 1986. In commemoration of Mr. Levy's service to his community, the state, and the commission, staff recommends the commission direct staff to prepare and transmit to the author a letter of support for SCR 45. Staff recommends that the commission accept the staff report and provide direction on any other additional legislation of interest. That concludes my report.
Been moved by Commissioner Gilmetti and seconded by Commissioner Taglioni to accept the staff report and recommendation. Any questions?
On SCR 45, is there a vote?
I'm sorry?
SCR 45 was the Senate Constitution resolution for Joe Levy.
Okay.
That's a Senate concurrent resolution.
Yes.
And if we approve the staff recommendation. Does that not include the position on
That was
SCR?
part of my motion.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee. Laura.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an informational item to provide you with an update on the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee and pilot program design process. At the May TAC meeting, preliminary decisions were made regarding what type of participants and vehicles should be included in the pilot. The TAC voted to begin with a very broad framework in which individuals, households, businesses, and at least one government agency will be recruited to participate in the pilot. The TAC also voted to consider all 8 vehicle classes for participation, along with both private and commercially registered vehicles. The California Trucking Association announced that their membership has opted to participate in the pilot program. Additionally, the TAC decided to test road charge exemptions for miles driven out of state and on private roads in the pilot. The TAC also determined an approach for addressing privacy protections in the pilot, received an introduction to the business case scenario, and discussed potential evaluation criteria for the pilot. Stakeholder outreach and public engagement for the Road Charge pilot program design process continues. The Road Charge Stakeholder Work Group is now meeting monthly to discuss input for the TAC. The new California Road Charge pilot program website continues to gain good exposure, and 5 focus groups are currently being scheduled in June and July in Oakland, Redding, Fresno, Los Angeles, and San Diego. The next TAC meeting will be held tomorrow, Friday, June 26th, here in Sacramento from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Caltrans headquarters in the basement boardroom. At this meeting, the TAC will take the broad framework it established in May and start adding much more detail with respect to the exact design parameters of the pilot program. They will be making decisions on the number and statewide distribution of pilot program participants. The TAC will also select evaluation criteria for the pilot and discuss how social equity considerations could be evaluated. The June 26 TAC meeting will be webcast live, and all meeting materials are available online at www.californiaroadchargepilot.com. That concludes my informational update. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much. Budget and allocation capacity. Laurel?
Yes, Commissioners. Athena Glidden is here from the department to make this presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here to make the presentation on the budget and allocation capacity update. This is a pretty key meeting because this is when we bring forward the draft allocation capacity for the upcoming year. On the first page, which is the non-STIP capacity, you might notice that the shop capacity is above the FE target that we had set in our last fund estimate, and this is due primarily to the CMIA TFA transfer, which increases the amount of SHA that's available. Then also there is a slight reduction in the TCRP. This is due to the early voting of a couple of projects, which is reducing next year's capacity. All of the other items are pretty much within their FE targets, and the bond amount consists mainly of trade corridors and local bridge seismic retrofit bond funds, which are yet to be spent. Now, carryover capacity, if we go over capacity or if we leave capacity on the table, that will be added or subtracted to the final capacity that will be presented in August. Of particular interest is the STIP capacity. As you know, the price-based excise, which is the main funding for the STIP, what is projected is set by BOE to be about 12 cents per gallon in the 15-16 fiscal year. The draft capacity represents a 23% reduction, which is only $430 million. And while that may seem low, it's bolstered by one-time funding in the form of the TDIF. We were able to, through federalization and project closeout savings, we were able to identify $40 million of this TDIF that we could place towards meeting STIP's allocation capacity. And it's important to note that if the revenues do not increase over the coming years, that even this capacity, even though it seems low, is pretty unsustainable. This year, the price-based excise is just under $300 million. And as you can see, the capital capacity we have set for 15-16 just for capital is higher than the entire amount of revenue we're expected to get in that year. Let's see. Let's go on. Now, we've heard a lot of talk about the extraordinary session, and everybody's talking about the special session that was called by the governor. And I know that we're all excited about the possibility of sustainable transportation funding. But in addition to examining the possible new revenue sources, we can expect increased accountability, emphasis on cost savings measures, and streamlining of processes. And I know that I and the Caltrans staff are actually looking forward to this challenge. It ought to be interesting. There's so many bills out there. But I'm sure that y'all know as much or more than I do about the details of those bills. As for the federal funding update, I finally get to give one because Vince isn't here. And there's a lot of discussion. There's two bills out there. There's the House put forward a bill, and the Senate is putting forward a bipartisan bill that will be a 6-year funding plan. I believe it was called the DRIVE Act, and it's gotten out of committee. It looks pretty strong. And I believe, though, they have not tackled the funding shortfall because, as you know, the federal excise tax on gas only pays for about 68-70% of what's included in the Transportation Act. So they will need to identify additional funding in order to make that work. Also, we are still dealing with the deadline at the end of July. Because the extension was only for 2 months. We're also simultaneously, of course, dealing with the fact that they haven't identified additional funding for the federal trust fund. So at the same time that the act is expiring, the fund is going to be critically low. So they need to extend the act, and they need to identify additional funds. And pretty much that's all I have, other than the updates. And Stephen will be talking about the fund estimate after me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mr. Chair, I can add on to the federal funding picture that was just discussed. If they do not find additional funds to get to, and everybody expects that there'll be an extension to the end of the calendar year to at least support the Highway Trust Fund's commitments through then, we would have to stop awarding new contracts if they let it lapse or did not extend the Highway Trust Fund, because we would have to carry them, the federal reimbursement, and we wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't want to get any more overcommitted. So if they do not figure out a way by the end of July to either fund an extension or fund a new bill, we would stop allocating new projects at that point until they did.
As a matter of fact, the director released a letter on June 1st speaking to just this matter.
Jim?
Yes. I hope that when we talk about these very serious issues, we talk in terms of unsustainable STIP capacity, nobody outside this room understands what the heck that means. What we really need to be talking about is that $430 million to fund a state this size is complete. That's our complete package of money available for any kind of capacity increase in this state is ludicrous. And it is partially about annual adjustments in the gas tax, which are consistently misrepresented by certain members of the Board of Equalization as, i.e., tax increases, or they want to take credit for decreasing the tax, when all along anybody that was part of the gas tax swap understands that we would have been paying the same amount for gas under the old system. So, pardon me for being a little bit strained on this, but we have to start talking about projects that are going to come to a grinding halt in the planning process. These are projects that are on the books. The director has made a good point of talking about what will happen if the feds don't step up and get their piece done. But we don't have enough money here. The bottom line is we don't have enough money to keep the program working, and we certainly don't have enough money to maintain our existing system. And we certainly need to be talking about prudent capacity increasing investments in our freight and other areas, and there is no money even identified for that. So that is the importance, I think, of the special transportation session is that we can have these discussions and hopefully bring people around and come up with a real solution that will put some new money into this and actually start fixing the roads that we all have to use every day, as well as our transit system. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, in response to Commissioner Arp's comments, I think that after we get through the next couple of items, it would be appropriate if you would direct staff to communicate with the legislative leadership and others about the dire straits that we find ourselves in with transportation funding as a result of the actions that you're going to be asked to take today with respect to approval of the fund estimate. And to put it in terms, as Commissioner Arp has suggested, that people can understand. This is a very serious crisis for transportation funding in California, and we should communicate to everybody who will listen that we've got problems that need to be addressed. And so with your direction to staff, we would try to put something together along those lines and provide information to the legislative leadership on the subject.
Absolutely.
And if I can just add, this is Laurel, on this item, it's about 20% short of the allocation capacity versus what we have programmed in 15-16, and that should be coming in for an allocation. We are about 20% short of the funds to do that with this allocation capacity.
Do we have the specifics? Because I think our message is much more effective when we can personalize it for each region and perhaps each elected too. So if we can put some names or faces on these projects that are at risk of not being awarded, I think it hits home a little better for us when we have some real actual examples that people can identify with.
Yes, Commissioner, the regions are already looking at that. We talked about that yesterday at the RTPA meeting, and they are looking at their programming in 15-16 to determine, what projects may be left on the table as they go forward into the year.
And I think in terms of our self-help message, where we have our aspiring counties and those counties that are trying to go back one more time, the whole project, if one partner can't cover their share, then it kind of takes the wind out of everybody's sails there. So I think we really do have to get some real live project news.
Commissioner Burke.
I have to really share my experience when I was at Metro as someone who would spend 10 years fighting for a project, and then all of a sudden, there's no money. And believe me, there's a lot of emotion and raising of hands when you put in so much time. I mean, those projects that come out of our local agencies, they really are things that are worked on for years. And sometimes you stand in line for years. I know every time I get near the top, they put someone else ahead of me. So, there's another project that was in the valley that would go ahead of mine. I won't refer to the project, but I really have to say that there really is a frustration when people work very long and wait a long time, because the STIP process really is one of where you get at the bottom and you work your way up in the local government. And believe me, it's very disappointing.
Thank you. Commissioner Frymer.
I think it would be great if, I don't know where the regions are and sort of looking through their lists and figuring out what projects might fall off, but if we could get some sense quickly and get it out. I want to suggest that we release whatever we do today as a result of this motion. I'd release it to the press, not only to the legislative leadership, but we need to, we need to really be ringing the bell right now as a commission. And what's happening is really very, very positive in the sense that having a special session is extraordinary. Having both parties now calling for, they don't agree on it, but at least they're both talking about it. And we've got leadership in the Senate and the Assembly talking about transportation funding. But I think we really need to keep our foot on the gas, no pun intended, to make sure that people know just how serious the problem is. And I love the idea that Fran raised about, personalizing it. Here's some of the things that can come off in these areas that might be potentially jeopardized, because local people will get it. As Yvonne said, it takes so long to get projects and you're counting on that money being there, it's in the program, and now you're ready to go, and they say, oh, sorry, we're not going to have that money for you. Just kidding. A little bit like Lucy pulling the football out from Charlie Brown when he's getting ready to make that big kickoff, right? So that would be my suggestion. I don't know how quickly we can turn it around, Will, but if it's contemporaneous with what we're doing today, given that we're taking a vote on it, I think that would be helpful. And not to criticize anybody, but just letting people know what the reality is. I think that's our job of this commission, to let people know.
Do we need a motion for that?
I think it would be beneficial.
Hoorah!
I guess that's a motion by Commissioner Arp. Second by Commissioner Frymer. So all those who want to booyah, please say booyah. All those opposed, please say nay. The booyahs have it. Item 18, the draft STIP.
Yes,
Laura.
Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I think if we're going to have motions like that, we have to change Robert's Rules of Orders to Bobby's Rules of Order.
Robert, I've always chaired meetings under Robert's Rules of Order. Robert Henry Alvarado.
Well done, sir.
Okay,
Good morning,
Commissioners.
Chair and Commissioner. Stephen Keck with Caltrans, and here I talk about the 2016 draft STIP fund estimate. This is a long-term look, the 5-year look at funding available for the STIP and the SHOP. And I'm very encouraged to hear some of the discussion going on today about funding for transportation. And I want to let Commissioner Fromer know that for many years during the early days of Prop 42, I had a poster on my wall of Charlie and Lucy playing football. And it was, in that case, related to what we called transportation investment funding at the time, and that was the actual sales tax revenue that we received. There was a lot of that going on, so I absolutely appreciate that sentiment. I want to remind the Commission the fund estimate is required by law to assume current law when it comes to revenue assumptions. We can, within that, make some assumptions, which the Commission has adopted at the last meeting, in terms of what the economy is going to do, what we think the price of gas is going to be. And just want to remind you what we did at the last meeting. This is with regard to especially price-based excise tax funding. We chose the second most aggressive option that we could come up with. This is essentially looking at a return to fairly high gas prices by the end of the 5-year period. This assumption assumes an 18-cent per gallon price-based excise tax by 2021, and that continuing through the rest of the fund estimate. That would mean gas prices around $3.75 a gallon. I'm not going to make the joke I always make about predicting gas prices, but I think everyone is clear that predicting gas prices and where they're going to be next month is hard enough. 5 years from now is nearly impossible. We think this is a good assumption as far as it relates to the current law and how price-based excise tax is done. On the federal side, we assumed a 1.4% annual growth rate in federal funds. This is very consistent with what went on with MAP 21, the last federally authorized act. I'll note that the DRIVE Act that Athena mentioned a few minutes ago, which is, I had to write it down, developing a reliable and innovative vision for the economy. It's actually not that bad in terms of acronyms. It assumes almost a 2% annual increase in funding for federal funding. It does not identify the source of that funding, but it does at least look at the program increasing over time. And so I think our assumption is right in the ballpark. I was going to mention it at the end of my presentation, but might as well do now. We're going into special session. There could very well, hopefully, be changes in transportation funding. It's quite likely that the federal government will come up with some sort of long-term funding plan also in this same time frame. When those things change, if they change, that becomes the new base for the fund estimate. So as I move on to the next page, which is not a very happy page, I just want to remind the Commission this is the draft fund estimate under current law. So in terms of result for the draft capacity for the STIP program, overall we're looking at more or less a net zero change for the 5-year period. In other words, we're adding 2 new years of funding, but the annual funding is lower than in the previous fund estimate. So we basically end up with a net zero. In this case, we're projecting an actual $30 million increase, which might as well be zero over the 5-year period. Components that make this up, the price-based excise tax funded portion of the STIP is down quite considerably from the prior fund estimates. Again, I don't think this is a surprise given the very significant drop in the price-based excise tax rate that we have coming up here in a few days. And even though we're projecting to eventually get back up to a higher tax rate, we're not looking to get to where we were just a few years ago at 21.5 cents a gallon when gas was, in cases, $4.50 a gallon. On the PTA side, the public transportation account, we're actually looking a little bit better than we have in prior fund estimates. This is primarily due to a slightly sunnier revenue picture on that side, because diesel isn't quite as volatile as gas has been the last couple of years. At the same time, though, we're looking at loan repayments coming back into the PTA, including a loan repayment that we received in the current year. And that's going to help to fund at least some capital projects moving forward, so we're looking at more long-term funding there. Again, the net result for the entire thing is just about zero. Not a very happy picture, but one that, frankly, might help some of the discussion that is going to go on in the legislature here in the next few months. This is just a reminder. We've talked about this particular chart a couple of times, but I want to remind the Commission, especially as it relates to capacity for the STIP, that when we see changes in the tax, all of that change is borne in the areas of the funding that goes to the STIP, to local streets and roads, and that little piece to the shop. So the part that goes to pay for that goes to backfill the weight fees into the state highway account is more or less constant, increases a little bit over time. But so when we see these tax rates, it disproportionately affects the STIP. And by design, this is the way it's set up to do. So when you're looking at revenue changes, it's all kind of focused in the STIP, and that's why we're seeing some fairly unhappy numbers in this STIP capacity. I want to also bring up the aeronautics account fund estimate. It's included as part of this package as well. There's not a lot to talk about in this one. We've worked very closely with staff to develop the programming capacity for this program. It does assume the full annual credit program at about $1.5 million a year for the aeronautics program, and the capacity for this program is $3 million over the 5-year period. Over the 3-year period. The fund estimate for aeronautics has a shorter time frame than the STIP fund estimate. I talked about this early on. The feds may come up with something. I've got my fingers crossed that they will enact some sort of longer funding plan in the next 2-3 months that we can latch on to and include in the fund estimate. But I think even more important than that is the special session convened by the governor last week. This special session will include discussion of new funding, hopefully, will include, as Athena mentioned, discussion of efficiencies, perhaps getting these projects done faster, quicker, cheaper, and it hopefully will impact these numbers in a positive way so that when we come back to do the final fund estimate, we will have a slightly better picture to present to the Commission. This is the draft fund estimate. I'm not asking the Commission to adopt this. You may do with it as you choose to do, but I don't need an action from the Commission to adopt this fund estimate. This is the draft. I will, however, mention that in August, when we had planned to adopt the fund estimate, if there is action that could affect the fund estimate, like a new funding down the line, something that's going to happen in the special session or on the federal, we may ask the Commission to consider delaying the fund estimate adoption until we can work all that out. As mentioned, we will bring a fund estimate to a workshop in July. This is an informal type of workshop. Commissioners and the public is invited to attend to hear details on the fund estimate, ask detailed questions on the draft fund estimate. And then as we move forward, any changes in these revenues that I'm really got my fingers crossed for, we'll report those to the Commission. We'll incorporate them into the fund estimate, and we'll bring something back in August. Again, if we're expecting something big on the horizon, might ask to delay the fund estimate just a little bit longer until we can resolve those issues. And with that, I'll be happy to take questions on the fund estimate or hear some more excellent comments on our need for funding that I can't particularly say myself.
Thank you. 19.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is an information item. We're bringing forward the draft STIP 2016 STIP guidelines for just basically for public review and comment. This is, as you recall, we started this process a year ago to start the STIP guidelines for 2016. We held multiple workshops through the summer last year and got a lot of good comment from our stakeholders that are interested in the STIP. We got a lot of really good suggestions regarding using more simple performance measures, a more robust public process. We brought the first and second drafts to you at October and March. The main changes that we have in this draft are we've included the performance measures that are specific to the rural areas based on the study that the Rural County Task Force went out and had done. And we have added a few things to the specific guidelines. They're specific just to 2016. That includes a discussion about the RTIP template that the regional agencies have provided or are looking at providing, and also some language related to the governor's declaration, emergency declaration regarding the drought, and also the governor's executive order related to greenhouse gas, that's B 3015. We included some language regarding that. So these are the changes that we're right now coming forward with, and I'm kind of hoping that we're getting to the point of having a final draft now. Again, these would be coming forward for adoption at the same time as the fund estimate, and what we've done in the first part of the guidelines in the specific is provide a timeline for how the STIP would go forward. And that assumes that we would be doing everything in August. If the fund estimate is delayed, that timeline will change. We would delay also adoption of the guidelines. Any questions?
Sorry, could I, Chair Alvarado? Sure. If I could just build off something Laurel said, and she mentioned the executive orders. I wanted to thank the staff for looking at that again. And mention that I think some of the work to date has been very good in this area. I know in past guidelines, you've asked for projects to look at life cycle cost. You've asked projects to look at greenhouse gas reduction, impact on vehicle miles traveled. And all those things, I believe, are strengthened in this version of the draft, and we look forward to continuing to look at those type of things, as well as with the department and the regions on not only having those boxes checked, but making those part of a meaningful discussion when the programs do come in. Working with Caltrans to see if we can maybe highlight some of those things and not and do bring them before the commission when you're looking at hearings in I believe February and March of next year. Thank you.
And let me add, this is still a draft. We will be having the workshop in July in conjunction with the fund estimate workshop. And I believe there are still some people out there who are planning to send some suggestions and comments, and we will continue to incorporate those. And of course, any changes to the law that may occur between now and adoption.
Very good. Any other questions? Item 20, the annual Garvey bond analysis. Laurel?
Yes, Commissioners, this again is an information item. This is the annual analysis of California's bonding capacity for federal grant anticipation revenue bonds. The State Treasurer's Office does this every year, and their analysis is generally based on entire federal revenues to the state. They determine, based on that, what the Garvey capacity would be. So that's what's being provided. We've also added our own analysis, which is something we've done also in the past. Basically, our recommendation is that we would determine this capacity based on revenues available for the shop. And so that would lower our Garvey bond capacity to approximately $3.5 billion. And this, again, this is an information item. What we will be doing is working with the department to determine if there is any planned Garvey bonding happening, and we will be doing a letter to the legislature in probably September to say whether or not we plan to do any Garvey.
Jim, when was the last time we used Garvey bond?
Gosh, I think it's like back in 2010 maybe or something. 2008. 2008. We did some STIP one time, and then we did some SHOP one time.
Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you. The information calendar, Stephen?
Yes, Commissioners. The next 11 agenda items are information items, 22 through 32. Staff looked at these, deems them not to raise any issues, and individual items will be not presented unless requested by a commissioner.
Questions? Thank you. I think what we'll do is we'll take a 10-minute break. So be back here at 5 minutes to 11.